What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Mythic Conversations here on Wednesday night. Thank you all very, very much for joining me this evening, for joining us, because I have a very special guest with me tonight. One of the most popular types of shows that we do here on Mythic Conversations are the pop and swap shows. So if you've tuned in for any length of time to this show, you know that whenever we do, whenever Four Horsemen Studios does a new pre-order wave, that Joe Vasapollo, my colleague at Four Horsemen Studios, and I come on and we like to do one of these pop and swap shows. It's something that I think we actually started a few years ago. I almost feel like the first one we did was before Legions Con 2021, where we dug into the Furious 4 set that I had designed and Joe had painted all the prototypes for. So we both had a connection to that, and we had a lot of fun popping and swapping those. And it seemed to be so much fun, and people reacted to it so well that, as crazy as it sometimes seems to me, there are genuinely people that now wait to place their order until Joe and I do one of these shows so we can kind of talk through some of the characters, show some possible swaps, and just answer some questions along the way. So that is what we are doing this evening. And to do that, I'm going to bring him up now. Live from Four Horsemen Studios, please say hello, the purveyor of the JoeCam, Joe Vasapollo.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the fabulous back office where there's almost one of everything that has ever been made by the studio in a well-marked cardboard box. How's it going?
That's awesome. It's cool to see you from that perspective today.
Yeah, we move around a bit. We moving and shaking in this place, getting some things ready for the future.
So, very excited about tonight. This wave, Cosmic Legion's OxKrewe Book 2 Harrow Zone. We debuted this just a few weeks ago at IshCon. Both of us were obviously at the show down in North Carolina for this. The reaction to this wave so far has been incredibly positive. People are really liking the, cohesive, I think, design and coloring of the figures in this line, this wave. It's interesting, Joe, that one of the things that I've loved about Cosmic Legion so far are the bold use of colors, colors that we don't typically see in the Mythic line or in Figure Obscura. But with this wave, because the storyline is so centered on this kind of almost like Mad Max style race through the Harrow Zone, we've got a very different look than we've seen so far. And it's a look that I would suggest is very conducive to not only displaying these figures together, but to actually sharing some parts across the wave with each other. Are you finding similar things as you've been playing around with these?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Just the color schemes, they look a little, they're outdoors, they're a little more beat up than what we're used to seeing on a space station or even in the prison a bit. Just we're looking at a different aesthetic, a little more rough.
Yeah. So we're going to get to the popping and swapping. It is worth mentioning, like we do for a lot of these shows, that what you are dealing with over there at the studio, these are prototypes. A lot of these things are 3D printed. So this is not like you just popping and swapping figures that are from the factory that you're pulling out of packages. We do have some very serious limitations in terms of what we can show with these. So we love when people ask for certain things, but do realize that if we can't do it, it's not because we don't want to. Sometimes we genuinely can't.
We'll do whatever we can. I got a lot of parts behind me. Some of the resin parts don't necessarily line up with factory pieces. So like I said, we'll do the best we can. But as usual, as of late, we began a lot of builds together ahead of time. So that way we're not, waiting for me to put some stuff together.
Joe.
What's up?
There's something behind you.
What? No, I'm here by myself. Oh, what? That's just my son. Come say hi.
Hi.
Sir Andrew in his alternate armor. Come here. You're on the internet again. I know. I don't get it. Oh, now you're embarrassed? Now he's embarrassed.
No,
it's because he took the mask off. Taking the mask off.
I hide behind a big beard.
So very well timed with the Alien movie coming out.
Let's say he's a big fan, along with a lot of other of my coworkers here. He probably loves it a lot more than I do, but at least he's got good taste.
Yeah, we threw them for a loop. Jeremy is saying he thought for sure that it was Chris in that costume.
Nah. The Gore Witches aren't the only family with jokers.
So let's talk a few things about what's going on before we get to this. So last week I had Curtis on as he ran his gauntlet, and we talked a lot about Legions Con. Crazy to think that we are now less than 12 weeks away. Don't want to hear that?
We're not ready. We're not ready. I'm not ready.
We'll get there. We do it. We get there every year by hook or by crook. We will find a way to make it happen. But very excited for that. We are, we're 3 months away, and we're at the point right now where we're down to just a few hundred 2-day tickets left. So my anticipation is that probably within the next few days, we're going to be staring down only having a few hundred tickets left. And we'll make that announcement, of course, when that happens.
Yeah.
Crazy. That's
exciting.
Seeing dropping the schedule last week and then dropping the show map and everything, it really kind of made it more real, I guess. It's seeing everything starting to come together. The level of anticipation is really starting to build.
And for as excited as people are, they don't even know what they're excited for yet. That's it's funny. Joe, that's a good point that you say that, because for the last 4 years, there's been a level of anticipation, an expectation, I should say, with Erythr, Alithir, Poxus, Necronominus. Last year, people were a little unsure what to expect, but there were plenty of guesses that it would be, a Noble Bear versus Rising Suns wave. But as we come towards the end of this year, really anything goes. And, that's kind of exciting. I've been hearing a lot of people talking about how they are very excited because they don't know what to expect. And that really sets the stage well for us to do something pretty special. And even when we end up doing something that people anticipate or expect, it tends to be not exactly what they were thinking.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, even if they say, oh, I'm expecting Noble Bear versus Red Suns, they don't know what the makeup of the wave is going to be. They don't know what the special items, the surprises and all that type of stuff. So yeah, there's always stuff that we're able to kind of delight people with, but with those reveals, I think.
Yeah, even with Ashes, it jumped around in time. The time before, the time after, before the war, during the war, all of that. So,
told some different stories. Told some different stories. But tonight we're talking specifically about the pre-order that is running right now. And again, this is the Cosmic Legions Book 2 pre-order. So that pre-order ends actually just over a week. That ends on Sunday, September 1st at 11 p.m. Eastern. Like usual, this is a wave that will go to our retail partners. So after our pre-order is done, This will be going to our retail partners after that. But I do want to kind of point out one thing to people. And Joe, you and I have been, certainly seeing this recently, where as more and more waves start arriving, when we do, like, for instance, live events, there's only so much that we can bring to these live events. The combination of waves that have recently arrived, along with, some of the stuff that we're doing exclusively at Store Horseman, things like the Skeleton Legion Builder and Tusk Gunner that we just dropped and brought to IshCon, the reissues we did, reinforcements. We're bringing more unique items to shows these days, which take up space, and it's making it harder to bring some of this older stuff. So, for years, really the focus of these pre-orders was, this is your window to get your order in, to guarantee that you're going to be able to get these figures, whether you pre-order them direct and pay that lower price, or whether you get them from retailers. The last few waves, we've had a little bit of extras that we've brought to shows, and they've appeared at a lot of shows. But, one thing I certainly want to point out to people, and keep in mind, I don't only say this as my role as director of marketing. I am also saying this just as a general kind of, heads up to people. You're going to start seeing a lot less of these things at shows. We're ordering a lot less because our market has changed so dramatically. We have a lot more retailers these days. There's more options to get these. So we are going to be ordering far less of these as extras in the future. That pre-order period really is going to once again become that period where your window to get these in. So I say that to people because you and I both hate it when people want these figures and they're sold out and they can't get them and they have to pay extra at the secondary market because they didn't pre-order. I want to give them the heads up now that pre-ordering is going to be your best way to get this. I'm not saying you'll never see these at shows, but I'm saying that if you are basically anticipating that I'll just get this down the road at a show, there is a high likelihood you're going to be disappointed.
There's been a few situations as of late where we'll have almost the whole wave, but one or two characters. And it's either because maybe the quantities were, different and, vary by character, or we didn't get the shipment, or it's simply sold out because it's more popular. Because people want to use it for other things. So your safe zone is absolutely the pre-orders. And as far as that older stock goes, like you said, we're ordering less.
I'm not doing anything.
Oh, nothing at all. We're ordering a lot less because, yes, we have retailers and we want to support them by, not necessarily having everything that they have available from us. Yeah. So, it's also stock. It's just starting to go. It's not going to last forever. Some of that stuff went back to 2018, 2017. Yep. Yeah, you're just not going to see it so much.
And that was a difference. The waves used to be spread out so much further. So like when we ordered extras, we were like, hey, this is probably going to last us for the next year before the next wave actually arrives. And now with Mythic, Cosmic, Figure Obscure, we're doing a couple waves of each line a year, plus these special drops and everything. It really has gotten to the point where our focus is more on, if we do have some extras to bring to a show, they might make it to like 2 shows, maybe 3 at the most. And then that stock is going to be depleted and the next wave is going to have arrived anyway. And that's the stuff that's going to start coming to shows, along with some of those special items. So again, it's kind of a public service announcement to let people know that, if you are waiting, saying, hey, I'm going to get this down the road, there's no real there's no real point in getting it now because it's going to be so readily available later. You're going to start seeing less of that as we go forward, because that pre-order period is going to be more of what we focus on.
That's right.
So with that, Joe, do you have a preference? Is there something you would like to talk about first? You sent me a number of photos. I'm ready to bring them up. Is there something you want to start with?
We can start with some of the photos because I have to switch my camera around.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to get into some, like, in-hand detailed explanations of how some of these newer body types work, and just their builds. There may be situations where you think like maybe the neck isn't connected to the torso when it is, or some of the power armors, how that stuff works. I'll try to show as much of that by hand as I can with what's available here. Again, working with painted prototypes. And in some cases, we only have one here. And the other's already off to China to be mass produced and get samples of. So we've got to be extra delicate with these. But again, I'll try to show everybody as much as I can, best I can. Jeremy, just let me know when we get to that point, what people want to see, and I'll do what I can to make it happen. I can't see the messages here. So
so let's start with the photos then. What photo do you want me to bring up first? Do you want to talk about the Thraxians?
Works for me.
So you sent me this photo, and this is kind of a side-by-side shot of the two Thraxians. And you were pointing out something to be aware of with the lower arms on these two characters. What did you want to point out with these?
Well, it's the lower arms and the lower legs. So let's look at the Thraxian Hunter on the left in the brown. You'll notice that his forearm from the elbow down, it's full organic. That kind of bone-looking bracelet that's on there, that's a piece that can slip on and off. It's not part of the sculpt of the arm. So that can be removed. The downside is when it comes to the Thraxian, that's a scalp, right?
The scout is the green one, yes.
Right. So when it comes to the green one, that armored gauntlet you see on him, it's a separate piece from the rest of the arm, just like what we're used to seeing with a lot of previous waves and build types. It is a separate piece from here up to the wrist. So you wouldn't necessarily be able to put that on to the other arm if you want it. You need to have the system of elbow to mid forearm and connect from there. So same situation.
If you put that lower arm, it would have to come with that green upper piece there, and you'd have to slap some paint on that to match that body.
Correct. Yeah. Now, unfortunately, that's not the swap type, but that's not to say we'll never have parts in those colors to do that, and who knows what'll happen. But I just wanted to put it out there that the armor on that arm, the full iconic gauntlet type, that's a separate piece that you would be able to swap onto mythic characters, other cosmic characters. Same goes for, if we could switch back to that previous picture for a moment. I just want to also point out that on the hunter, from the knee down to the bone armor, that's more organic knee. So if you want to swap those around, you would need to keep one of those knee parts on. So it would look a little funky.
Okay. Now, one thing I think you probably could do is, last week you showed some of the parts from the Legions Con 2-pack, the Amazing Alien Creature Creator, and you showed how kind of those arms look that are painted, that brownish color. If you wanted to use that lower arm of the Thraxian Hunter, if you didn't want to have to paint that top part, that green upper, part of the arm to match, the part that actually comes with that set might work there as well.
Yeah, there may be a little hint of green in there and a slightly different tone of brown. It wasn't painted to be absolutely compatible, but I think it would be passable in just a small section. Sure. Yes.
For sure. And even if you did want to paint, it might be less paint necessary. And if you do get, one of the nice things is if you get the Legions Con version of that set, that build comes with 2 sets of upper arms. So if you go for the full Tusk build, you'll have those, extra upper kind of scaly arms anyway.
Love extra sets of limbs. Big fan.
Yep. Extra sets of limbs are always a nice thing. I mean, I think we both appreciated having not gotten stuff like that for so many years, now that it's like an embarrassment of riches with how many extras we get. So yeah, a lot of cool options between these two. I think we've already talked. I've heard some people say, Joe, that using that armor from like the Thraxian Hunter, using that with like Bryophytus is going to be a lot of fun because it almost has like a wood-like feel. I think that bone-like feel on the Thraxian Hunter is also going to be pretty cool for a bunch of different, more organic style swaps.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing some of those myself. And I wanted to just bring up from last time we had JoeCam last week on Forest Horseman O'Clock. Yep. The body types between both of these Thraxians are the same. Mm-hmm. So the green one will also have that mid-cut.
Yep.
And here it'll have the swivel and the lower neck.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. So you had mentioned that last week you were going to get clarification on some of those enhancements. All of those enhancements being the diaphragm cut, the neck piece, all of those are on both Thraxian bodies.
That's right. And you can see the green one looks a little bit taller. That's because the green one is fully painted resin pieces, while the brown one is a production sample of those pieces, like, fully injected, that we were able to paint up here. So while here they look a little bit different in size, they will be the same height in the end.
And that's, so we've mentioned this before, but to build on what you're saying, the resin pieces that we print and paint at the studio are typically 104% of size. So there's a little bit of a size increase over what the final versions are going to be. And that's what you're seeing here.
That's right.
So Joe, I'm going to forward over to another one. This is one that I requested you do that I'm super excited about. Hilor Kren is very possibly one of my favorite figures in this wave. And we have a number of swaps using Hilor. This is one that I really love. This actually uses the upper arms and upper legs from another Legions Con set. These are the upper arms and legs from the Garich 2-pack, from Garich specifically, correct?
That's right. And right there, that's the factory paint. We have a couple samples. So the colors you see there, that will be the end product. I don't have pictures of it, and it'd be kind of hard to get together right now, but also you could use the fabric limbs of Monkey King as well. I don't know if people have any extra of those floating around, but it's more of like that kind of tan, sandy color that works really well with this sort of, desert type character.
So the only thing to point out on this, these are factory painted parts, but they're actually, this is basically the paint sample they sent us. So the thing that is incorrect is the disc color. The disc color you can see on the hip is like that bluish. That disc will be the same general color as the rest of the body. So this was basically just swapping the Tusk up arms and upper legs, and for the arms, that lower part from the elbow to the gauntlet, that was just a straight swap for the armored parts with this.
That's right. Yeah, the colors, this was totally unintentional. It just so happens to line up really well. Another one of those happy accidents. Always looking forward to those.
Yeah, the one thing that was intentional, I will say, is the color of those on the Garich figure. And this is something that you and I had talked about. You're always thinking about, hey, it's so easy to paint things black, right? Because black typically looks good with everything. But because we've already done those parts in black a few times, there's always that question of, is there a color we haven't used yet that would look really good in this design that would also have the byproduct of giving us a brand new colorway for that? Sometimes when you do something like Kaipacha uses black because it made sense in that case to do that. Actually, I'm trying to think, does he use black for his limbs or brown for his limbs?
Maybe brown. I think the leather parts are like a flat black.
That's right. The leather parts are black. The other stuff is brown. So those browns would probably work here as well. But these parts were chosen this color because it's not something we already have in the line, this kind of sandy brown color that's going to work really well. I really like the way this lays out. And then we have another one that you did here where you threw those soft goods, that kind of wrap on his head. I really like the way that you've got that. And a number of people have pointed that out. that was something that during the design of this figure, I know a lot of times you find creative ways to use some of these soft goods. Is that style wrap something that you helped lead forward?
No, honestly, that was just part of the design that was given to the CGSM team over there, who always do wonderful work. I'm going to make a little noise here for a second because I'd like to take this guy out. So what we have here is simply the scarf. That's all it is. It's just how it's wrapped around the head. But that's what I love about these kinds of pieces. There we go. So yeah, it's just how it's wrapped around. Yes, you have a gun. Thank you. That's not polite. Thank you. Nope, they're our friends. We don't point guns at friends.
I know.
So yeah, this is all it is. And it's a nice stretchy material too. It'll retract, and we have the wire in there so it'll hold. So essentially, I just took it like this, go over the top, bring it around the front, bring it a little more over, and then I fed it into itself, and it just kind of makes this kind of neat hood. You just leave it like that, and the wire really makes this possible. It's that easy. You can go over to the mouth a little, just make them a little more, mysterious. Like that's just cool. And it'll work with so many other head types where if you just want to add more to this crew, having something like this just to be, to read like they're part of this group works exceptionally well.
Yeah, CJ and his team did an amazing job. They're in the chat right now saying lots of styling options with that scarf. Absolutely. Great job on that. I love the options that they gave for that particular part there.
Yeah, and it's another one of those pieces that, looks good in Cosmic, looks good in Mythic too.
So here's another one I requested on Hilor. I wanted to see how the blue head looked with the upper arms from Thigar. And this is interesting because when I saw this picture, I didn't like how they looked together because the blues are very different, but I really liked those Thigar blues with that armor. I think that that's a great look. It just needs a different head, whether it's a Thigar head or a custom head that's painted to match. But I really dig the contrast of the blues on those arms with those mustard type yellows of the armor.
Yeah, I was looking forward to trying that too, but just like it's not so much the color as the texture of the skin, where it's super scaly on the arms, but not so much on the head. But once I did this, I was able to think of like, well, what would work for this? Because I just love that colored blue on there, and I realized Lord Dragu has a very similar blue color, and this was not intentional, but I'm telling everybody that this works so well.
Yeah,
you don't necessarily need the tattoos on there, but it looks like we were trying. And I'll tell you, again, another happy accident. They just line up really well. I didn't bother to get the bare set of legs on there because I didn't think it would look, all that right. But everything works great. Yeah,
and it should be pointed out, there's the blue arms on Zazar are an option as well, but the blue arms on Zazar are a different color blue than the ones on Dragu. The fact that this is so spot on really points me to the fact that if you've got an extra Dragu lying around, or you've got those extra blue arms because you didn't know what to do with them, because to your point, they're not the easiest part to use in different pops and swaps because they are such a distinct color.
Right. And they at the time, there was no other head that really kind of like color wise would go with it. So typically you have to find something that was helmeted like Dragu.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is just a case where, what, you take that Dragu body, you rip off all the blue limbs, you pop some Fury Orc arms and legs on there. I know that works pretty well with, if you have any of those extra ones laying around, then you have another blue set of limbs to go with this guy.
So Dorclear pointed out, if you want to use those Thigar limbs, just put Hilor's helmeted head on, which doesn't have any skin showing, and that would be a great look. Absolutely. Michael Cooper's in the chat, and he says, only discovered Cosmic Legions last week. Love the world building with these figures. Thank you very much, and thrilled to hear that you've discovered them. We've said from the beginning that with the Cosmic line, more so than when we first launched Mythic, narrative and story and how we roll that out has definitely been strongly considered. So thank you very much for noticing. So we got this here. There's another shot of that. Let me bring up another shot. Just a little bit of a closer shot to show that color match. Yeah, this is one of those happy accidents. I like this a lot.
Yeah, those arms have, that lighter kind of highlight on the higher areas that kind of go with the mouth a bit better, and toss some purple tattoos on there, and I think that'll really come together nicely.
Now, you're mixing Mythic and Cosmic here. This is a Lord Dragu. I know that that's one of the things that you specifically love to do is figure out how Cosmic parts can be used in Mythic and vice versa. This next one I'm going to show, Joe, absolutely blew me away. And you mentioned this previously talking about Jabara. You said that could be used kind of as a mage, and I really think that you see that idea brought to life with this swap right here. This is pretty straightforward, but tell us what we're looking at.
So I'm always looking forward to using those head pack heads, because those are characters that don't exist. It's whatever you want them to be, whatever type of character, you give them the backstory. So here's a situation where I thought she went nicely. I always like having that red hair along with green. I think that's always a good look, even though it may get used a lot. I don't care. I just like how those colors go together. We have taken off all the Cosmic parts from Jabara's body, and I just switched it with what's her name? Silver Cord. Artemis. Yeah, those are all Artemis version 2 parts on there. Okay. Her boots, the belt, the gauntlets. I kept the leather gloves from Jabara on there because they made more sense. And just a staff I put together from the accessory pack, and I forget who had that staff. But honestly, I think it just made like a really cool kind of, Xylernian mage there.
I like it. I really do like it. I mean, that torso, interestingly, has only ever been used in Cosmic. We haven't used that, but it really reads well here as a Mythic figure. I like this a lot. And this also shows that soft goods cloak piece that CJ did, that collar is integrated. It's not a separate piece, correct?
It is a separate piece.
It is a separate piece.
It is a separate piece. Yeah, here.
Okay, so let me
pull this out too.
I'm gonna bring you up. I'm gonna give you full screen so you can see that. Show us more about how that works. It looks so seamless there. Oh, nice.
That's it. So if you want to use it without, you can. But for now, that's how that goes. This head is a print, so it will sit lower. You will have better contact. But I like that this is a separate piece because you can get different looks out of it. Yeah,
for sure.
And I also love how, I don't know if I think we might have showed this last week, but this beautiful paint job on there. Here, let's cover that up. No one needs to see that.
Yep.
There we go. So wonderful work there. Yeah. Right. So if we wanted to, we could put this back on without the mask. Just cover up the lower half of her face there. That's a nice mysterious look, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that'll work with a lot of things. If you can give me a second, I'll flip the camera around so we don't have all this visual background noise.
Sure. Well, I actually have this shot too.
We're here for the toys.
This is one that you said well. So this, and it's interesting because someone earlier with that swap you just did, they referred to that swap as a Mythic Mara Jade. So Mara Jade from the Star Wars, I believe that was that Heir to the Empire that one was in? Regardless, part of Expanded Universe, but that's definitely a cool one there. A few other questions while Joe's getting set up that I saw come in that I'll answer. Babylon Squared, I know Cloud answered this for you, but where did the cloth arms and legs come from that we showed a few minutes ago? That was indeed from the Legions Con 2024 Gorich figure. And then Keith pointed out that I want to use that head and blue arms on something mythic. Yeah, I really do think that Sligor head, which is what was repainted there, reads as a mythic figure. I painted it up like a vampire. I think it looks really, really solid. Joe, you want to go solo layout here? Let's tell us what you're doing.
So I want to point out the fabric on this because we've seen these arms appear in Rising Suns with a couple characters. So she has those as well as the legs. But I think why this torso really works well within Mythic is because of the soft goods below it, because it really makes it read as more of a, a kind of like tunic or robe. Yeah. And then once you start to cover up the technology and swap out to those other pieces, it just kind of changed the world that it makes sense in.
Yeah.
Which is, again, when we're designing these, we always have the initial design for the character, but as we start to get things in hand, just thinking about how they can be used across everything, we always try to take that into account.
Yeah, she definitely has a very techno mage type look to her.
Right.
That was, and it's interesting because obviously her design is very like, wasteland, Ravager, scavenger almost type look. It wasn't that techno mage, but now that you see it in hand and you do these combinations, that absolutely reads. Even that weapon is almost like a futuristic, like magic staff.
That's right. Now, if you were to give her, let's say, some kind of like fully armored arm, that would also kind of read to that too. Kind of like, I'm blanking on the characters' names. There's just so many at this point. But with, I don't know, we already had one with an armored arm in a previous wave that used a mythic torso.
Yeah,
that was just, different paint on there, brought it to cosmic.
Nope, Callie and Shun.
There we go. How could I forget her name? One of my favorites from there, honestly. She was a sleeper for me in that whole deal.
Yeah. Yeah, Jabara is a great looking figure.
Let's see if she'll stand up for us. A lot of printed parts here. There we go. And, once you take off all those technical parts and put it on, have them off to the side, there's another build that looks pretty good if you have that one available.
I do. I'll bring that up right now, Joe. So there we go. So this looks like you took all those, more cosmic-centric, technology-focused parts, and you threw them on what I have to assume is a Tusk engineer.
That's right. Just the simplest of swaps. Yep. And we might have pointed this out before, but Jabara does not have an armor piece underneath her soft goods. That's why I left the armor piece on for this one. But, that's just a pretty awesome look right there.
Yeah, that's a very cool look as well. It's really similar parts, I think, except for probably the feet that the engineer came with already. But the fact that those are fully painted up and they still work with those black limbs, I think that's a really good look there as well. Those greens also have a very almost military type, coloring to them, it seems.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that going on. I bet it would look pretty neat next to the heavy gunner too.
Joe, I'm going to bring up this next comment from our friend Drew Grubbs, and hope that our bosses see this. Drew says, "I wasn't going to go all in on this wave, but these shows always change my mind, and it has done just that." So, in case CB, Jim, or Cornboy are watching, just know that Joe and I helped sell another all-in tonight.
Sorry, not sorry. Never sorry. We're just here having fun. If our fun is infectious to you, I'm okay with that.
Absolutely. So
I guess you don't like being happy.
Sure.
Which is weird because
if you don't like fun, then maybe not. Yeah, that's good. So you're on JoeCam, Joe. Is there anything? I've got a handful of other photos here. What would you like me to go to next? You want me to go to the bug, or you want me to go to the Skateback and Vlian?
Let's go to the Skateback, because I know a lot of people have been looking forward to seeing this.
Okay. So the first photo I'm going to show, Joe, is you sent me a photo of what these two look like side by side. And it should be pointed out that of all the fragile figures in this wave, the Skateback and the Vlians are by far the most fragile, because they are top to bottom. Like, these Skatebacks here are top to bottom new parts. So that is all 3D printed. These, you had to put together that Skateback today, correct?
That's right. We make 2 of everything. One stays at the studio for color checking. The other goes to China to be reproduced. The reason we keep everything apart is just so we can get like the best look of every individual piece to check against the one that comes in from the factory. Maybe there's some kind of detail that's hidden by, armor, belts, soft goods. So we like to have it all in pieces. Also, when it's not built, you have a lot less chance of like paint rub and scraping from being together and being constantly articulated. If it's not something that's going to be on display, it doesn't always need to be built. So yeah, we threw this guy together, and for the most part, he was doing all right, but it's a little warm in here, and I don't like to use glue on these pieces unless it's absolutely going into a display. In this case, this one was not. So I had some assistance from Sir Andrew. That hand is not included. I apologize. It's
Thankfully, I don't want my arm cut off and rebuilt.
That is just a nightmare, an absolute nightmare to reproduce. You got to have the original, right? And typically, when you make anything, the original's destroyed. So so hand not included. Sorry, but thanks for that, little man.
So Joe, I'm curious. Bungie's getting a lot of love. That character and his story, people really seem to be digging Bungie, the bestest boy. Do you have a preference on these 2 Skatebacks? Which one you like better?
I tend to like the aggressive things a lot, but Bungie just seems to have so much more, a polite and helpful and lovable personality than the other fella. If I was to encounter one of these in the wild, I'd much prefer to run into Bungie than the other fella, even though he looks delicious, being the colors of a great peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I can really dig that. But I'm not going to eat him. He's going to eat me. So yeah, let's go with Bungie.
Okay, yeah. Both Skatebacks are very cool. I mean, the fact that I feel like these are going to be the figures in the wave that have the most aha moments when people get them. People like, for instance, Chris from Mythic Bits, who are very, he loves tearing things apart and finding unique ways to use the pieces. The fact that Eric sculpted parts of these bodies, those lower arms and legs and so forth, to all be 1.0 compatible, these I really feel are going to lend themselves to some crazy kind of creations.
Yeah, that's right. Seeing them on 1.0 characters could be insane later on, or just seeing what people do with them. It'll be really interesting. One thing I was musing, and I'd like to try this sometime when we get paint samples in, but I want to take like an armored Tusk arm and replace one of these guys' arms with it, try to get a swap like that going, or maybe give it a Knox bowl lower leg. See if I can pop that on the back there and just kind of make some kind of cyborg out of one of the fellas. Could be a lot of fun.
The parts are all compatible, so they absolutely will work. The lower the feet basically on these things, they are all compatible. Those front legs on the Lowland Skateback, those front claws there, those are basically 1.0 hands that'll pop in. So
that's right. Yeah, the back is a little more tricky. I don't think they have the same ankle joint. Except for where you see that spike coming off like the top, but that's essentially the heel.
Yeah.
So you would be able to disconnect it from that point and putting it into something else and have those kind of feet on another body, which really, if you're trying to get a more diversified alien look, that will really help along with that.
Cool. Now, you also have a photo that you sent me that a lot of people requested of the Veblen Agcha riding the skateback. I'm going to bring that up. Oh, wait a minute. You have something you just brought up there.
Oh, I'm just trying to get something else info there just to see, the scale of these. So we'll go side by side. Height-wise, that's what we're looking at in scale. So 1.0, and you know what? We'll toss one of these guys into standing behind. So that's about how tall they are. It's kind of hard to tell in the pictures.
Yeah. The skatebacks,
some reference.
The skatebacks are big, but I don't think they're as big as some people think they are.
Right.
In total, they are pretty large, but because their legs are a bit, more spindly, it's not like a rhinoceros. They're not these just gigantic, imposing creatures. They're imposing in a different way. While I think people think that the skatebacks might be a little bigger than they are, I think they also think that the Veblens are smaller than they are.
Most definitely. Yes.
So this is a photo that I'll share, Joe, that actually shows Agcha the Veblen minus the soft goods on top of Bungie. So this is a shot where you can see how that character is going to look riding that character. They are, and the thing with the Veblens is just by crouching their legs and stuff and, crouching their head down a little bit, you're going to get very, very different looks in terms of how they lay out. But if you fully extend them, kind of like Agcha is here, they are pretty large.
Yeah, and there was always a note that Eric had made when these things were being put together and put in the pictures, that their legs are meant to kind of be like in a squat position, always not fully extended. So I would say the height of these guys, it's going to vary depending on how you choose to articulate and pose them. That's up to you. But we keep calling them little because they kind of give that impression, but they are most definitely not. And again, the parts you see here on the Cosmic, the guys on the right, they're all 3D printed, so there's a tad bit larger, but not so much where they're going to shrink so significantly that it's going to look wrong.
Hey, Joe.
Yes. Oh, that's
we've kind of lost some of your audio.
Looks like it switched back to my headset. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
That's very strange. Sorry about that.
That's okay. We heard you, but you sounded far in the distance.
So, yeah, what I was saying is, Agcha, that type of character is meant to be a little squat in its design and its purpose. So how they're posed, it's totally up to however you choose to display the figures. So the height will vary. Yeah.
So this is the shot here of Agcha next to the Gravekeeper. So to your point, the Gravekeeper is a production figure. That's 100%, obviously.
That's right.
Agcha is 104. He's a little bit bigger. Agcha here in the shot you sent me, so we could see that size. He also has his legs fully extended as opposed to crouched down like you were talking about.
Right, yeah, and I just use the stand to keep him up.
Yep.
But yes, essentially, he can be taller than others. And, maybe it's just what they do. If these guys feel intimidated, they're not so squat anymore. They make themselves a little larger to be like, all right, hey, now look what you're messing with.
I kind of like that, honestly, dude. Like, because there's plenty of animals in nature, turkeys, for instance. I have wild turkeys. They're always walking around my yard. And if they feel threatened, they get big. Their tail feathers go up and they they look so much larger than they do when they're just kind of chilling out and walking. Maybe Veblens are kind of like turkeys where they're more kind of squat and all down, but then when they feel threatened, they get bigger and they raise up to their full height to try to be more imposing.
Yeah, I like that idea. That's how it is in my head canon.
Here's another shot you sent of the Veblen next to Imbera Jimjera. So that's against a 2.0 figure, so you can see that size, because the parts of the Veblen are actually 2.0 parts, correct?
That's right, yes. Yeah, it has the same waist, same kind of like arm attachments. We had mentioned this before. His legs, the upper thighs, are what you're going to see in the goblins.
Yep.
In that 2-pack that we revealed before. I think the upper arms as well. Yeah, if not, they're very similar. So yes, 2.0, even though it looks like a 1.0 scale, it's a little different.
Yep. The lower arms from the elbow basically to the hands, those are the same ones as we got on the Greyborns?
The Greyborn? I believe so, yes.
Excellent. I believe I have one more shot here. So you did send one more similar to what's on the table in front of you. That shows kind of the combination of, Bungie. And of course, in this example, it's worth pointing out, Bungie has that stand on his midsection to hold him up. The stock figure will not need a stand like that. It will stand up on its own. Once again, that's because it's the prototype. But this shows that kind of the size difference between some of these figures, both the prototypes from this wave and some production figures.
Yes, and the saddle from Bungie will be able to fit on the other Skateback. I just didn't give myself enough time to make that happen. Yep. But if you want to, it'll work.
So back to the Skateback photo, if you wanted to have a character riding that more aggressive Skateback, the lowland Skateback, you absolutely could do that. Joe, out of curiosity, on the Veblen there, what is that kind of neck piece look like? Not the neck so much, but the head. Is that a 2.0 neck ball there that people could use?
Well, let's see. I got it up in front here. It's kind of hard to tell because, like I said, this is all printed parts, man. Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
I love this paint job.
Yeah, it's great.
All this crazy detail. Sherry killed it. She always does. But another great example. So this is the upper torso. It's connected to the neck. This does not come apart from here to here. You are solid. Underneath, a little behind the scenes, that's right. We tape everything together when we can't glue it. So right now, I don't know if this is going to be factory or not, but that's what we're looking at. So I think it's going to be difficult to put any other type of head onto this body at the moment, besides the ones that they come with.
Yep.
Like even this, without the post, it's helmeted head. That's what we're looking at. So I don't know if it's going to have the ball connected, or if you're going to have a post that'll be able to fit into that cavity that you'll pop on. It's a little too early to tell because I haven't seen any fine cuts of these parts yet or injections. So, hard to tell. But you know what? While we have it, if we're trying to get a 2.0 on there, I mean, it's going to be a little funky, right? Maybe you got like a shapeshifter.
Bill Mancuso custom right there.
Indeed.
I mean,
it is a lovely sense of humor.
It is also worth pointing out that, when we talk about some of these pops and what's possible, we're talking about straight out of the box, meant to just pop one off, pop the other one on. You know, we've made this line so easy to do that with. But for a customizer who's not afraid to do some dremeling or, some putty, whatever, you can make anything fit.
As you can see, this guy's a little in shambles at the moment, but if anyone wants to take a screenshot of that.
Great paint jobs on both of those.
I know, they're lovely. I don't think people really get to see the top of the head too often, but like even on the back. Like, wow, see, sometimes we fall apart. That's going to happen when I'm constantly manhandling these. So, man, I love these guys. Andrew's a big fan of this. He doesn't normally ask me to to bring home any of these personally for him, but this guy, he was like, yeah, I need him and I need Bungie. So
I never said Bungie.
no,
I never said
oh
Bungie.
well,
I said Bungie, the bestest boy.
yeah, Bungie's bestest boy. Yep.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Those are looking great, Joe. Thank you for that
Sure.
look at you know what, Joe? I want to show some photos of the bug, because one of the figures that really got a wonderful reception at the G-Con event, and since, quite frankly, has been the tribute figure, the PowerCon debut figure, as we call it, Anthophiles. That figure, I think, offers a bunch of cool options. And one of the things I really wanted to see was how that figure would look with the upper arms, or the full limbs from the Thraxian Hunter, those browns. So I'm going to bring this up right here. And this is a pretty crazy type look. The transition from the lower arm to that hand is a little weird. Honestly, if I was building this, which I very well may, I'd probably use that bracelet that it came with, but maybe paint the bracelet up like the color of the hand so it looks more like a transition where it comes up a little bit to the upper arm. I think that would work really well. But those scaled type arms with this body, I think, look really cool.
There we go. Sorry, mic was off. Yeah. Tons of potential with this guy to get another just kind of alien race out there.
And this first photo shows it with the helmet on. You did also do one that I'll show here that has the second head on it as well. Made me wish the head like this that came with the Sentry. It's not a brown, it's more a black, but that could even work as well, possibly on this. David Williams, who's in the chat. David, of course, is the one who created the original custom that this was based on, saying that looks awesome, very 2000X. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, there we go.
Yep. The Davophilia, yeah, they're like space bumblebees. That's very intentional. So here we go. Joe's got that in front of him there.
Ignore the paint rub.
No, but this figure in front of you, that's the standard figure as is. That's the one that's actually available for sale as a pre-order in this wave.
And while I do appreciate the original design, I got to say I'm a big fan of the other head. And yeah, just like to point out, and David mentioned this too, there was a chance that he could have used this head or would have used this head if this neck was more readily available at the time or even existed. I'm not quite clear on the timeline of when everything was made. But I'll tell you that with this articulation here, I'm not going to push it down anymore. I'm trying to keep the paint from scratching, but
sure.
You can get it to sit really well. Excuse me. There we go. Yeah. I just love it. And it comes with the extra set of mandibles. So you can have his more aggressive stingers out.
Yep.
If you like. It's always nice to have those extra pieces.
Very cool.
Yeah, I dig this guy a lot.
So again, this is what it looks like with those Sphexian limbs on there. You also came up with another swap on this as well. You used the Azar arms and legs on this figure. That's an interesting choice. Just like you were trying to use those brilliant blue type of pieces, using those bright yellows from Azar, that actually works pretty well on this.
Yes, it's not a match, but it's it really gets it the pop. And with those brighter colors, I think it looks a lot more aggressive.
I mean, it's cool just to show some different actual options, the fact that this is the Davil Filiar are kind of like a little race that we created there, to just vary them up a little bit. I mean, I'm not an expert on bees, but I know for a fact there's a number of different kinds of bees. My wife, who's a gardener, tells me about that all the time. So you could swap these different pieces on and just have different versions of the Davil Filiar, and I think that would work really well.
Is there a shot of him with the helmet? I may not have sent it.
Not the helmet and the yellow arms and legs.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the yellows are a little different. It makes a little more sense with the helmeted head than it does with this, because then you don't have like another organic flesh tone to clash against it with the helmet. It goes together a lot better.
Nice. Yeah.
But also that head, the six-eyed head looks really good on a bunch of other Tusk bodies. It's just so much fun to be able to mix that around.
Do you have a Hilor there that's somewhat intact that you can pop that head onto? I'd love to see it on that body.
Yeah, I think I can make that work. Let's see.
That six-eyed head is actually my favorite of the alien heads.
I think I might have shown this last week when we were trying not to do too many pop and swaps. But we can't help it. Let's see.
Oh, yeah, you did. That's right. Yeah, but that looks
but
good.
it's always worth repeating. I mean, that yellow is significantly different. It can't be confused with the armor, so, I mean, I'm a fan of that look as well.
Very cool.
I love these eyes are a little metallic in there.
Yep.
So it's really neat how that reads, too. Always a lot of great color choices made with these. Sorry for the shaky cam. There we go. Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Love it. So, Joe, we've seen, we've looked at a bunch of different figures in this wave so far. I don't know what you're popping and swapping, what you're thinking of, but I know that one thing. Oh, and that was a request. What's the yellow head on the Gravekeeper body there? So.
Oh, that's weird. I can't see those requests, but look, it's there. Why not?
You did it right as it came in. One thing I'd love to show people is to look at COG and some of the other OxKrewe builds, because there's been some questions about their heads and how those pieces work. It's worth pointing out that the OxKrewe bodies are 1.0 bodies, or I should say 1.0 compatible, with the exception of the ankles and I believe the hands. You couldn't pop the ankles into a regular 1.0 lower leg because they're just bigger. But, I mean, you could put from the knee down and use that. So, for the most part, they are compatible. But there were some questions about even just swapping parts across the different OxKrewe members, specifically around the heads. So, give us a little bit of a tutorial on how those heads work.
All right. The main part that we need to understand is, as of now, this is your main torso. And what's going to make a swap from this body to this type of body is this rim underneath the neck here.
So that's a Velok body that's in your hand.
Yes,
right
this is Velok. As of now, that's what we're looking at underneath. Okay. This collar is a separate piece that allows for this neck to go in. Now the difference here with COG, let me need to remove a few things, is this is your neck base. And this is the standard of what's underneath, because these torsos, they're the same sculpt.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you're going to have the same cavity on both. So if you wanted to, you can take this. It's kind of like the Hellfire Goblin situation, or Bog Goblins, where the neck is its own neck peg. You don't need any other transition. So if you want, you can drop that in.
Dude, that looks cool in blue.
You right?
I really do dig that.
Yeah. Another great swap. Yeah, I mean, you change some colors on this guy, and you could have just another one of his kind in different armor. But yes, essentially, if you wanted to have another head in this type of body, you would need to kind of have an extra one of these around to pop in there. And
Yeah.
I think I have one or two extra heads around to make this work. Let's say you have an unnamed character. If you want to do something like that, you could.
Nice.
So of course his face not going to stay in for me. So why would that work? If you give me 1 second, I'll get some nice sticky tape in there.
And that faceplate that you just showed, that's one that comes with Ularia.
That's right.
So now, what you just showed for Cog, that thick kind of neck piece that plugs in, that's exactly what we get with Orvar as well.
That's
Orvar
right.
has the same type of, the neck just plugs right in, whereas both Ularia and Velok have that ring that a regular 1.0 neck goes inside of that ring there.
These are different. I don't know why. Maybe the tooling for these parts has changed since. This is the, an original type of piece. It could have been upgraded to this. Honestly, I'm not sure. So until tooled pieces come in, I can't really speak to it. There's no answer.
Yeah. So one question, Joe, and again, we preface this by saying we're looking at prototype parts until we get factory stuff. Things can always change. But David was asking if the inner peg hole under the collar is the same as a standard neck peg. It seems to be, because that just looks like a normal cosmic neck.
This is an updated one, so the armored heads will have articulation. Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of like the Valiant Knight, you're going to start to see these pop up. I don't have a list in my head of every character that will have one, but I can tell you that Hilor will.
Yes.
And yes, that's a standard neck hole. So you could fit the older ones in there. You can put mythic ones in there. It doesn't matter. Yeah. So yes, flesh, armored, doesn't matter. That should work. It will be designed to work that way.
So one question is, will Cog's head fit on a 1.0 neck peg? The answer is no. That is a very, very different style head. That is not going to be compatible out of the box. You're not going to be able to just pop that off and put it on a 1.0.
Right now, this is what it looks like. Again, we're looking at this kind of situation. Ah, well, now I have to. Now I have to. This is for you, Bill. It's what nightmares are made of, right? I'm not saying this is possible. I'm saying that in front of you as it is, yes, but will it be in your hands? Who knows?
Now you've got to do the opposite. You've got to put that V-bleeding head onto Cog.
Okay. Oh, boy. I'm sorry for this one. All right, here we go. Wow. I guess this is how they grow beards? I don't know. That's not great.
It looks so weird.
Oh, why, thank you. You can leave the room now. Doesn't look like me at all. What are you talking about? All right. Here. Your nightmare fuel for today. There you go. Ugh.
Joe, I don't hate that. I got to tell you, I really don't hate that.
You play as you please. This does not work for me. Let's put it back. There we go. All right, I can relax now.
So, Joe, I do have a request here that I think you have all the parts that you would be able to do. So, I got a request from Kevin Boots asking how the Anthopheles bug head wings and hands look on the Hilor kren body. So I think
let's go.
I think we're looking at the helmeted head. So the wings aren't really going to fit because there's no place to plug those wings in.
You would need a Sphexian back.
Yes.
Maybe from the minor. The minor would probably make the most sense because it's black. Yeah. And now that I said it, I have to try it. I have to try it. Give me 1 second. I'm going to run away.
Well, Joe, if you have a block commander, the block commander is kind of a brownish color.
Let's see here. Maybe you cannot hear me.
We can still hear you.
2 boxes.
All right. Block command. Block commander. No. Yes. All right. Let's grab them all. Forget it. Let's go. What a
So
great
while Joe's
idea.
gathering parts to do his prop and swap, I'm going to see if there's any questions here that I can answer. Yes, Joe is bringing Sphyxy back.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dorklair is pointing out that you could plug it in without the collar. But what fun would that be? Let's
All
go
right.
back to the JoeCam.
So we're going to see the underbelly here. So I want everyone to know that I'm scratching the heck out of this paint to make this happen. But I painted this one, so I have to fix it. It's my problem later. But I'm just as curious. I know I'm just as curious as everybody else.
I'm like
See that?
cringing as I watch you do that.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm willing to do for you guys, all right? Let's see here. So this is a different body type than what we see here. This is a different one. I don't think this is going to fit the way I want it to. So for now, let's just leave off that collar like was suggested.
I will say, Joe, you can get the Sphyxian back piece on that. It's not easy and it requires heat. So you're better off probably not forcing that.
Yeah, I'm not trying to totally beat this thing up before we have to send it away. Because this is at least another hour's worth of work now to touch this up and mix all the paints over again. But I just got to know what this looks like. I have to know. Oh, this is looking good. This back adapter is, your basic wing adapter with the smaller ports. So I bet you didn't think you'd be getting around to using that anytime soon. And, well, now it's that time.
Cover Customs is saying that's future Joe problems.
This is true. Yes, I make a lot of those, believe it or not. Ask my doctor. All right. Let's get rid of those feet, too, because we can. Right? Pop those on. We'll do
Joe's
half of it.
Fun now.
Right? That's what this is about on the fly swaps, pun intended. Now, see, this is what we're talking about, how the head sits on this regular neck. That's about as far down as you're going to get it, so it looks like it's looking up. That's not great. So let's switch out to that other neck because we can. Let's see. All right. Oh, I'm going to cry. All right, that's as down as I'm going to get it. Luckily, the air conditioning doesn't work in this room, so everything's nice and warmed up. So it's a bit easier to fit things together than normal. So that's nice, right? Okay, so yeah, there we go. Got the Sphyxian hand on there, a foot. That's pretty neat.
That's super cool. Like,
yeah,
honestly, that looking, we were just talking about the different kind of Davophilia, that looking like a fully armored version, that's really cool.
Yeah, that'll work. Let's lower that a bit. And of course, yeah, I'm not gonna do it now because these are kind of sensitive knees, but you could pop this whole bottom section off and get them looking a lot more buggy.
I think that this might be a swap that I actually do as a permanent figure. I'd probably repaint the face a little bit just because that bright yellow stands out a little bit on this particular build, but tweaking that, and I think that is going to be really a nice overall look.
Yeah. Maybe swap out some of the minor parts in black with the yellow ones to get more of a, black and yellow B look to them. Yeah, that'll work. I like that a lot. We're definitely gonna have one of those on the shelf. Whoever requested that, thank you. That's a good one.
That was Kevin Boots. Thank you very much.
That's solid, Kevin.
Curtis is saying, sorry, I can't do Anthophilius without Azar arms and legs now. So he's a big fan of that pop. Yeah.
Well, you'll just have to get another.
Um,
It's not
let
bad.
me ask this, Joe. On
Yeah.
that cog figure, I know that that's very prototypey.
Uh-huh.
How possible is it to see like how those arms work articulation wise? Is that possible or is that too fragile?
Sure, I think I can make it work. So
Specifically how the shoulder pads work.
they're on a ring. Again, everything's held together with tape around here. There's this ring that sits within the shoulder. Sorry, let's...
Totally new part.
Yep. So this is a 1.0 style arm.
Mm-hmm.
The peg inside, so you would be able to put this on a Tusk if you want it.
Yep.
There's a ring that sits inside that will rotate. It's on a hinge that, again, these have a hard time staying on, so I'm just going to demonstrate. Yep. It'll swing around on that ring, front to back. Wherever this arm goes, it'll... Yeah, into the camera. That joint's a little more stiff than the rest.
Yeah,
but
so
yeah,
that's going to be
this will get out of the way.
Yeah, that's going to be a whole new range of movement. And we've talked about this on the previous OxKrewe, but it's worth repeating. That's going to be different than you see with a lot of figures that have pauldrons, where once you hit where that pauldron is pegged in, it kind of provides, you can't really move it unless you really lift the plastic up. This is made to really move with that.
Yeah, they're going to try to, again, these are printed parts. I think some pieces I had seen before, this sits out a little bit further away from the arm, so it should be able to move up considerably more than what the prototype is showing now. This arm was glued. It is now no longer glued, so we're just going to leave that to the side, and we're going to mess up this side instead. Yeah. So, and there's ports up top, so you could put, hoses or flashlights or other attachments up there. That's just a neat little feature.
So Stygian 360, OxKrewe Book 1 at this point is slated to ship early 2025. Joe, does this figure have toe kick?
I want to say yes, it does. Right now, because of how I need it to stand on the base, they're kind of tagged down. But there is a hinge right here where you see that bolt. Right behind it is about a hinge, so it should be able to bend up from there slightly up to, just the bottom of the shin there.
Excellent.
So yeah, as far as getting a nice stance, it's possible.
Anthony Houseal is asking if the canisters in the chest are interchangeable.
That I'm not sure. For Orvar, I know we have additional sets that are like lenses, kind of like work lights, where you can replace them. So I want to say very possibly. At the moment, I think these are glued in.
Yeah, it might be one of those things where there are different parts that get glued in at the factory. So you could pop them off with glue. Interestingly, Joe, you know what I learned just the other day that I never knew?
What's that?
You were just talking about the Sphexian body, right?
Yes.
You know the Sphexian body, how on the rib cage, it's got those two spots where the small Sphexian arms go?
That's right. Yep.
That's the same torso that's used on Deluxe Thygar. Those little ports there that you can put tubes in, those are little plug-ins to those exact ports. I didn't even realize that. I literally thought those were two different torsos.
Nope. Same thing. And just this whole upper collar piece, it just changes the whole silhouette of it and these bug arms.
Yep.
I mean that really makes it too. You take it out and you really start to see the big picture here.
But literally,
that's great.
It was so, the ones on the Deluxe Thygar are so, because the parts are so integrated that I never even realized it was just pieces that were pegged in there instead of the small Sphexian arms.
Yep. A lot of thought goes into little things like that. I want to say that in the 2-pack coming up for Legion's Con, I think it's going to have the hose ports. That's something I would need to double check. I think it's going to have hose ports instead of arm ports here. One of the original designs for that was going to have Sphexian parts, but we were Yeah, we were. I don't think we ever got a set painted, but I've seen it on the renders. That may be one of those things I have to look into for a later show, because just to see what could have been. But we realized we're throwing so many extra parts into these sets, we had to kind of reel it in
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah, that was one. You're totally right, Joe. Where that. So we're talking specifically here about the Tusk Experiment CC24. That one at one point also had a Sphexian head. It also had Sphexian small arms, Sphexian hands, and a Sphexian tail. So there was going to be a Sphexian build you could do with that thing. And when we laid all the parts out, we realized that it was just insane, even for a Legion's concept, which is saying something. So those got pulled back. But you are right; those were on the original render.
But I think the selections that were made in the end were, really benefit the figure a lot better. I just couldn't help myself. That was easy enough. That boot looks really cool on this.
Okay, wait, going to solo.
There we go. Yeah. So that really changes up the type of alien that's inside there.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's.
I guess you just find a way to fill this up, and you're good to go. Or like we said, if you're willing to put a Dremel into these, it would be a very, very small hole.
Dude,
that
you
would
don't
need to
even
be
need
made.
a Dremel. Before we had wing adapters, Joe, back in Mythic 1.0, I made a number of Mythic Angels. And literally back then, what I did was I took a drill with a very small drill bit, and I actually drilled right into the shoulder pauldrons. I drilled a hole right in there, and it was such that the wings back then for the, it was for the birds at that point, the pegs were so small that you could just peg them right in, and it had enough tension to hold them. You could just drill some really small holes in the back of that to peg those wings in if you really wanted to. I know that freaks out some customizers, but again, I think back to the original spirit of some of this stuff before we had access to so many 3D parts and just so many parts of the existing library. That was a point that, using, glue and drills, and you used to use all of that, like, was that plumber's tape that you always used and stuff. You have to make do with a lot of different parts. So you can get, a little inventive and make this stuff work.
Well, a lot of that kind of popping and swapping for me, that customizing comes from having, like a carpentry background. So I'm already used to using those kind of tools and had a certain amount of competence with, those materials. So it was just lucky enough that I was able to use them on these figures. And again, I said it before, mistakes, sometimes they can be expensive, but you got to be willing to make some if you really want to make something great and different from what's readily available in the parts the way that they work. You'll be able to get so much more out of it. Of course, if you want to practice on some stuff you really don't care about so much or your extras, go for it. You'll be surprised at what you could do if you put the time into it.
So, Joe, we're coming up on time already.
Oh, wow. That was fast.
I know it is. Are there any other things that you wanted to point out or show before we let everyone go for the evening?
Let's see. What do I have around that I can work with? Not too much, honestly. I think we got a majority of what I would have wanted to go over mixed up tonight. If there's anything else that pops up, maybe we'll try to get it posted to our official channel. But as far as all the builds here go, whatever we haven't covered between tonight and the previous episode of Forest Horseman O'Clock last week, I think this is it.
Yeah, it's quite a bit. I think that, as we said at the start, this is a very cohesive wave, just between, as a number of people pointed out, Thraxian Hunter, Hilor, and Anthophiles. Those three figures have so much that are going to work between them in terms of colors. Joe threw in some different mythics in there and so forth today to add to those. Seeing Jabara and how those parts can transition to mythic as well. all that stuff is great. I think people are going to have a really good time with those OxKrewe builds, the actual bulky armor, mixing and matching those. And because they are 1.0 compatible, when you factor in Tusk bodies as well, those are going to add a whole nother level to what you can do with those Tusk builds. I shared an article today about a look at the Traders Union and the different kind of soldier characters that we've released so far as a member of the Tusk. It's really cool to see the different colors and variety and uses and everything we've gotten so far. And I really do feel like there's a lot more potential coming with these new bodies and builds.
Yeah. Hey, while we're at it, I just want to see what the Thraxian Hunter kind of cloak looks like on him. That's kind of cool.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, 3D parts, people. Yeah, well, he'll get over it. And if I'm going to do that, I have to see what scarf looks like on this guy, because I'm looking at the colors here, and this is more kind of like whitish tan. This is more yellow, but it doesn't look bad. Let's see. That looks pretty neat too. Again, I don't think this color choice wasn't intentional, but that could work in different variations. And I don't have his armored head available, but I really like the look of that on this. Yeah, that works.
So Mr. House Seal is saying dwarf mech suits FTW. So
one can dream, I would love this. Cornboy just had an interview recently with the Legion's ladies, and he was talking about how he would make the mechanical parts and a lot of fabricated figures in the McFarlane days. And I would love to see his vision of a cosmic mech in this world, and maybe even have like a whole other type of alien race that would pilot these in particular. That could be, on the dwarvish side. That would be fan-freaking-tastic.
Well, CB loves his mechs. That's right up his alley. So who knows? That's definitely something that is a possibility for down the line.
One can dream.
No, the armored head for the Thraxian, it is not just glued on. That is part of that sculpture. There is that Thraxian figure comes with the two different heads. It comes with the helmeted head and the unhelmeted. But that is not a mask that's glued on or that's going to pop off. It's part of the sculpture.
There we go. It was wrapped up in another piece of bubble. Yeah, it's not separate. It's one solid piece as we made it here.
Yep.
Now, when the factory gets their hands on it, it may be different, but that doesn't mean it's going to be like a fully sculpted head underneath. It's probably going to be a lot of smooth plastic and what we call keying, and that's when you just have like, deeper areas and higher areas that interlock so everything stays in place when you go to like, twist apart, it doesn't come off. So when they put a little bit of glue in, everything should line up the way that it's supposed to every time to keep consistent.
It's kind of like, the original helmeted orc head from Mythic Legions.
Right.
They made that helmet a separate piece just for production purposes. You can pull that helmet off if you try on an orc, but the head that's underneath it is not something you would ever use on its own.
No.
Because it's, like you said, the way that it's built and stuff, it's only made to go in that other piece.
Right. But that helmet is kind of fun to put on a goblin if you're willing to get nasty with a X-Acto blade.
Yep.
Know what I mean?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's pointing out that it looks like the same underlying sculpt as the first Angry Thraxian. It certainly is. When Eric sculpted it, he sculpted the first Thraxian first, and then he probably added on that piece to it as two separate pieces, but it was never meant to be like an attachable helmet that went on. So yeah, if you get that other head, that the other Angry head doesn't come with the Hunter, it does come with the Scout. Certainly you could paint it up if you wanted to have that aggressive looking face without the skull on top.
Yeah, it's funny you should bring that up. I just want to show one more thing if we have a moment.
Yeah, we lost you though, Joe. We lost your video.
Yep, that's okay. We're just switching around here.
Oh, okay. That was intentional.
There we go. All right. So, yeah, there are times where if we want to update, make another part for a head, if you look closely, and of course I don't have one available, look at the details of this part of this helmet here. This is a Century head with additional things sculpted on top of it. This hose, this part, and this apparatus along the front is all based on the original Century head.
Mm-hmm.
So there are times when files are just repurposed and used as the base where, you know, things are just built on top of it for a totally different look.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't have one available, but, you know, once you have yours in hand, you can line it up. We'll see where all those details come from. Man, I really like this cape on this guy. Yeah, see? This
I
is
really
a big
do.
old hole and more tape. So much tape.
Yeah, I
We
think
love our tape.
I may actually, for my Hilor, I may remove the skirt piece and just go with the armor, but use that Thraxian soft goods piece up there. I like those colors and how they match.
Right, and the Thraxian has that loin piece as well,
Yep.
so you could just swap out to that so you keep everything consistent. Yeah, I kind of like that darker look for him, and then you could swap it around.
Yep.
Nope, that's the fun of it. You make it what you want. They're great as is, but the potential is awesome.
Yep. David's asking if the basically the lens piece, the glass on that helmet pops off, or is that one integrated?
It pops off, so you can switch it out to other ones. As of now, that's your sculpt underneath. So that's a great question. Whether it's going to stay that, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't think it would be a big deal to maybe paint that silver. I only recommend that color because then any other color plate that you put over will, you know, have kind of like that shine through effect. So that could look cool. You know what? I'll make a note of that.
Very cool.
That wouldn't be a hard thing to do to just, you know,
Easy
paint that silver back there, and that could go a long way.
Yep, absolutely.
But as far as the original design goes, this is a solid color. This will not be a gloss. That's going to stay flat.
Yep, it's a very matte. Awesome. Joe, as always, thank you so much for joining me this evening. This is always a pleasure. Hopefully everyone enjoyed this pop and swap. They got their questions answered. As we saw earlier, hopefully this helped you decide on what some of your orders are going to be. To reiterate, the pre-order for this ends next weekend. That is Sunday, September 1st at 11 p.m. at Store Horseman. While this will be available through the retailers after that point, the direct pre-order with the lowest prices you're going to pay, that is what ends on next Sunday. And once again, the caveat, this is a pre-order wave. So the only way that you are guaranteed to get this is if you place a pre-order direct or through a retailer. If you decide to wait till later, you're taking a little bit of a chance. So get that pre-order in, support Cosmic Legions, support the wave, and we thank you for doing so. Right, Joe?
That's right. And support the retailers as well. We're really glad to have them be part of this, because you're not going to find these in Targets and Walmarts. It's, you know, those smaller collectible shops that we all like to visit, and those online retailers that help us find those hard to get items that, you know, help everybody out. So
absolutely
support them as well.
With that, we're going to call it an evening. Thank you all very much for joining Joe, Andrew, and I this evening. I will be back here next week with another Mythic Conversation. Same Mythic time, same Mythic channel. We will see you all then. Good night.